If you get paid for a living, then you already know this. There are many parts of your job ChatGPT can do better than you ever will. I've spent over 10 years training highly skilled teams in government, finance, tech startups, and non-profits to think like a behavioral scientist. So guess what happened when I trained ChatGPT with the same models, frameworks, and canvases? It generated more creative ideas in under a minute. Ideas so genius that it would take me or any of the teams in workshops that I work with at least an hour to come up with. And that's on a good day. Let me tell you how I trained ChatGPT and how you can use these 3 levels of training to turn ChatGPT into your creative genius. Level 1 training. Randomized constraints. The School of Design teaches us that constraints don't limit creativity. In fact, they amplify it. Think of the last time you got a deadline. Deadlines force us into this laser-sharp focus mode, and quite often we stumble upon these ideas that we typically may not have. I'm going to walk you through a process that I use, prompts, to give ChatGPT constraints to come up with more creative ideas. Cool, so ChatGPT acknowledges that constraints fuel creativity. Now let me share an opportunity for change with ChatGPT. So that's my challenge. Copy, paste. So my challenge for ChatGPT is how might we make it easy for new credit card customers to automate full balance payments so they avoid high interest charges. I want ChatGPT to first summarize an understanding of this challenge in 3 bullet points and check in with me to see if it got this right. AI often mirrors human biases. So when we give too much freedom for ChatGPT to come up with ideas, so without the MINDSPACE framework, you can imagine ChatGPT would come up with a very generic, average, dull, boring answer. But when we actually give constraints, just like with groups in my workshops, I find unexpected solutions come out when I force a group to, let's use the messenger effect to think of how we would address this challenge. And teams apply that laser sharp focus and come up with very counterintuitive ideas at times. Cool. So I think ChatGPT has summarized my challenge, right? I'm reasonably happy with that. Let's see if ChatGPT can help us help customers avoid that. Cool. So it's asking for the MINDSPACE framework. MINDSPACE is a framework from Behavioural Science. MINDSPACE, in fact, is an acronym, as you can see. It's a framework which the Behavioural Insights team put together with the UK Cabinet Office, as well as London School of Economics and Imperial College London were involved in the designing of MINDSPACE. So it's a good combination of practitioners and academics who've put together this framework. And you'll see that each of these MINDSPACE principles lends itself to different strategies. For example, the messenger effect is about who communicates the information is more important than what the information is. Incentives is about loss aversion and immediate rewards. So that's a quick overview. I'm just going to copy paste all of this to ChatGPT. And my final instruction for ChatGPT is randomization. Remember I said level 1 training is not just about constraints, but it's also about randomizing constraints. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT to randomly select 2 of these principles and come up with 20 thought starters. And there's a reason why I want ChatGPT to come up with many ideas. And immediately after that, what I'm asking ChatGPT to do is, if one of these MINDSPACE principles don't sound right as a constraint, give me the option to swap it out. Cool. So I'm gonna hit go. Still analyzing. It's doing some deep thinking. This is when you know you're getting ChatGPT to work, when it takes a wee while. Cool. Boom. Cool, it's selected defaults and messenger effect. And now it's giving me 10 ideas, totally 20 ideas, 10 ideas with default, yeah. So I'll read out like 2 or 3 of these ideas. So idea number 3 is use a friction-based default where customers must actively decline full balance payments with an explanation. So this is essentially using friction as a way to, people hate filling out forms, and if we add friction in the process, people are less likely to opt out and they're more likely to go with the flow. Potentially a problematic solution, but very clever, ChatGPT, very clever, my friend. Display in-app messages from a virtual financial coach encouraging automation. That's an okay idea. Let's see another one. Idea number 19. Offer an explainer email featuring an influencer in personal finance discussing the benefits of automation. People are less likely to listen to their banks as advisors and their credit card companies, but if it's an influencer that they relate with or similar personality types, maybe they're more likely to be influenced by someone in that position rather than the bank. So you can see how this constraint is leading ChatGPT into solutions maybe it wouldn't typically provide. I'm reasonably happy with this. I really liked that default idea. Very risky, but I like risky ideas. So that's level 1 training for you. Level 1 training is about introducing randomized constraints and forcing ChatGPT to work within certain parameters, and to maximize creativity, shuffle those parameters around. So don't just give all the MINDSPACE principles, but ask it to randomly pick out 2 MINDSPACE principles, and I can already see the amazing thinking. Level 2 training, stacking feedbacks. Most ChatGPT users never push ChatGPT beyond its first good answer. They treat AI like an answering machine rather than a creative partner or a creative relationship. I'm going to do things differently. This comes from the school of systems thinking. Deeper insights quite often comes from shifting perspectives, taking multiple different lenses. And by taking multiple different lenses, we force our brains to think about problems in a different way. The way I'm going to do this is first I'm going to ask ChatGPT to combine some of these answers. So I've got a bunch of good ideas from ChatGPT. Now what I want ChatGPT to come up with is one solid concept. So the input I'm giving it is to pause and reflect on these 20 thought starters it had sent me and combine them into one cohesive concept that uses one or both MINDSPACE principles. So it can use either messenger or default or both of them. I'm going to give it the creative liberty to decide. But I'm going to add a constraint. It needs to write the output in a very specific format. What pathways has it used? Has it used one or both pathways for change using the MINDSPACE framework? The concept in one sentence, how it works, why it works, and next steps. So how to test, learn, and adapt the idea. Assuming that any idea that we come up with in the first instance is not necessarily going to be the best idea. So having a plan to test that idea will also be helpful. And also for me as a practitioner, I want to know, is it possible to test this idea? So that'll give us a few clues of whether our idea can be tested out as well. I quite often see this in teams. If you only give one lens, one lever, for example, could be incentives. So teams may look at, okay, how do we use financial incentives to encourage people to automate their credit card bills? And MINDSPACE works quite well in that because you have to use 9 different principles. What I'm going to do next, cool, I've got an answer. So let's read out the concept first. Auto pay by default. So new credit card customers are automatically enrolled into full balance payment during activation, with a trusted financial expert guiding them to see the benefits. I really like that. Maybe the automatic enrollment was quite an obvious idea, but quite often we have a lack of trust in why are we being nudged or pushed in a specific direction. So having a trusted financial advisor, I can see how that will also support someone to stick with that plan going forward. So it's not just going to be, people aren't just going to be automated right in the start, but if they understand the benefits, they're more likely to stick with it. Let's see how it works. Seamless default setup, so it's during card activation, so that's a good time for the intervention when someone's getting a new card. Having an onboarding expert, I like the sound of that. You can see the detail of thinking going behind the process. And let's look at step 3, friction-based opt-out. So if users attempt to disable autopay, they must confirm this decision and briefly explain why they're opting out. So it's adding a lot of friction. I can imagine someone may want to opt out, but by adding so much friction, they're not going to opt out. People don't like filling out forms and explaining things. But also a risky idea, which is why I like it. I think we're playing in that risky territory, and that's where good ideas come from. We're not looking for safe, obvious, boring ideas. But I'm also going to show you how we can de-risk some of these ideas. It's not just about getting the riskiest possible idea that can get you fired. It's about then finding what's the middle ground, what's an idea which is going to be effective, but also will support customers' financial well-being, because that's what we're trying to do through these interventions. Post-activation nudge, I like that. So if it remains disabled, there's a strategy. What about the customers who decide to opt out? So it's addressing that and assigning them a financial coach. Very clever ChatGPT. Customers who haven't activated autopay gets reminders. So 82% of customers, we know that's the classic social norms nudge. And ChatGPT is given some of its process of why it thinks it works, along with next steps to test. So A/B testing, message variation, constantly monitoring, does this actually work in practice, and a follow-up impact. So it's got a rough outline and a plan and process. Under level 2 training of ChatGPT, stacking frameworks, I'm going to stack another framework on top of MINDSPACE, partly because I think some of these ideas are a bit risky and I want to de-risk some of the ideas, but I also want to see are we missing out on anything? Do we have any blind spots? Can we think about this differently? So I'm going to add my next prompt, and this is the 6 thinking hats. Essentially what this exercise does is it's going to get ChatGPT to wear 6 different hats and analyze its own idea wearing these different hats. So for example, the red hat is about gut feeling. You'll notice the questions are yes and. So it's giving, I want ChatGPT to give constructive feedback back to ChatGPT. Does ChatGPT have a gut? That's a philosophical question. A white hat, how will they test if this idea works? So even if we do this, how will we know if it works in practice? So I wanted to answer that question. Also ask the question, how can this take a strengths-based approach? Looking at what are the strengths of customers, looking at a positive lens through which this idea could be improved. Okay, so the black hat, risks. Yes, and what are the potential risks of this idea? I want ChatGPT to start considering, is this idea a bit too risky? Are you comfortable with this idea, ChatGPT? There's also a green hat. Yes, and what creative directions can this idea take? So that's, I think the idea is already pretty creative, but this maybe, can we push it more into creative territory? And the blue hat is a practical one always. Okay, if we want to do this, like how do we get started? Give me an outline. So ChatGPT is going to pause and reflect on any feedback it has, and then I'm going to provide it further instruction. And you can see ChatGPT thinking through the different hats. Its gut feeling is that it feels intuitive and behaviorally sound. So that's proving ChatGPT does have a gut. White hat, A/B testing. So that's one way to test out. Opt-out analysis. So how many customers opt out of this auto-enrollment into paying their credit card in full. I want to see the black hat actually. So the black hat, perceived lack of control. Some users may feel that auto enrollment removes financial autonomy. It's a bit we're forcing customers to make a specific decision, and maybe they're comfortable taking risk and paying high interest. Trust issues, maybe with the messenger especially. So if they don't trust the financial influencer or advisor, there may be a lack of trust. Opt-out backlash, I like that. Users might resist this whole like, why does it need to it's perceived as too intrusive. Why do we need to give a reason to our bank that we want to opt out of this? Also legal and compliance concerns, and this is something which I may not have thought about, but you can see the depth of thinking. Some regions may have regulations against auto-enrolling users, which we do need to consider. You can see the strategy coming in. It's pulling back, especially with the black hat. Maybe it's flagging that there are some ideas that ChatGPT came up with that it's not comfortable with itself. And we're moving away from these very obvious interventions to more grounded, more informed interventions. So that's level 2 thinking for you, stacking frameworks. Level 3 training, reflective thinking. Most people come up with few ideas, pick the best one and move forward. But creative breakthrough is coming from reflection, iteration, and structured refinement. You'll see through the ChatGPT prompts, something which I have encouraged is for ChatGPT to come up with many ideas to start off with. This is a very similar format I follow through for my workshops. Come up with lots and lots of good ideas inspired by Jeremy Utley's book, Idea Flow. The quantity of your ideas, especially at the initial stage, is more important than the quality of your ideas. So that's more quantity, and that's all you should care about at the initial stage. And that's what I've prompted ChatGPT to do, to maximize on idea generation. And then what I've done is, once you have that wide range of ideas, once you've diverged and you have a big set of ideas to play around with, I've asked ChatGPT to mix and match the best ideas, and that's how I got ChatGPT to creatively come up with the auto-pay by default idea, reinforced by trusted guidance. And after applying the 6 thinking hats, ChatGPT reflected on that answer. It's applied some reflected thinking. ChatGPT has this innate capacity to reflect on its own thinking, and I think that's one of the biggest strengths of ChatGPT that we don't always get to use, and I strongly encourage you to use it. After reflecting on its concept with the 6 thinking hats, I have a final prompt for ChatGPT to do some reflective thinking. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to propose a first draft. So we've done all this thinking and it's not come up with a first draft idea just yet. And now I'm finally giving it a framework to come up with a first draft. You can notice that I've called it first draft, and the reason why I call it a first draft is so that we're more open and receptive to feedback. So even though the idea has gone through a bit of prototyping already, it's still the first draft at this stage, and presenting this idea to stakeholders who knows what might emerge. So the concept I want ChatGPT the format I want it to follow is a summary, the challenge, so that's the how might we statement, to present it back to the stakeholders, the key insights, so why does this idea work in the first place, the solution, so a concise description, how it works, so giving a step-by-step implementation, why is it effective, risks and mitigation. Remember the black hats? I want priming ChatGPT to think about how it might mitigate some of these black hats, and what needs to happen to test or implement these ideas. And let's see what it does. What you'll also notice is ChatGPT has gone into canvas mode, so now I can easily edit the idea if I need to. Let's see the idea in the first place. So how might we make it easy for new credit card customers to automate full payment balances so they avoid high interest charges? Key insights, people tend to stick with the default settings, so doing it at the start makes incredible amount of sense. And by reinforcing it with credible messengers, it's more likely to stick with it. What I really want to see now is the risk mitigation strategy. One strategy, there's going to be a perceived lack of control for people if we push or nudge them towards automatic payments. So clear communication that a user can opt out at any time is essential, and I think that will support some of that perceived lack of control. Trust issues, using a credible independent financial expert instead of a bank representative. I can see how that might support. Regulatory concerns, ensure compliance with local laws before offering clear terms and conditions. So at this stage, I think to the wider stakeholders, it's suggesting that we need to bring risk and compliance under our umbrella, as well as the legal team to sense check, is this idea feasible, is it possible, what can be done and what can't be done. It's given some clear next steps and ways to go about it. So that's the final level of training ChatGPT. To tap into its full creative potential, we need to write very strategic prompts and constantly ask ChatGPT to apply its reflective powers. So pause, reflect, refine, pause, reflect, refine. And through that process, you see ChatGPT at this stage training itself to come up with better and better creative ideas. Cool, so we've covered a lot today. I want to quickly summarize the 3 levels of training ChatGPT to think more creatively. Level 1, randomize constraints. Push ChatGPT beyond those obvious ideas. Remember that constraints amplifies creativity. Level 2, stacking frameworks. Force deeper, multi-perspective thinking by giving ChatGPT framework by framework to play with, and this encourages ChatGPT to apply multiple lenses. Level 3, reflective thinking. ChatGPT's biggest strength is to pause and reflect on its own ideas. Use it. If you want all the prompts, you can see the link in the description below. And remember, dear knowledge workers, you will not be replaced by AI. But you will be replaced by people who use AI.